we are reminded that no matter how strong our gun laws are in this state, we are only as safe as the weakest laws in this nation. And I echo the call from Governor Hochul for a nationwide ban on assault rifles. I want to thank Manny and 32PJ for having us here today and for allowing me the opportunity to convey my heartfelt condolences to Alan's family, who we heard from just earlier. I want to thank retired Lieutenant Shamsul Haq, who co-founded the Bangladeshi American Police Association, of which Officer Islam was a member. I landed back in New York City this morning and went directly to the home of Officer Islam, where I met with members of his family, young and old, who are heartbroken over the loss of their son, of their brother, their father, their husband, their friend. Heartbroken in a way that words cannot fully describe. And as we spent close to an hour together, there were moments that stayed with me. Moments like when Officer Islam's sisters asked me, "Who will we call Bhaiya now?" Moments like when his brother-in-law told me of how it was Officer Islam that brought him to this country, that took him to get his first learner's permit, that got him his first job working at a restaurant in Union Square, where they would speak together every single day. And when he told me that for him, Officer Islam was an open door, and now that door would be forever closed. And I know that in the way in which that home is shattered, the way in which it is quieter and emptier than ever before, there are other homes across this city experiencing that same kind of loss. Other homes where families are asking themselves questions for which there are no answers. And while we grieve the loss and the murder of 4 New Yorkers, we know that there are others recuperating now in hospital, and that millions of New Yorkers are praying for them all. And while I will not say the name of the gunman, I want to talk about those that we lost. We've heard from Alan's family of a man who was the father of 2 children. We've read of how his smile lit up every room, how it was as warm as it was infectious, and of a man who did a job that is so often overlooked. And yet it is that first greeting that so many feel when they come home. And so it was him that was also in that first line of fire just a few days ago. We've heard of Officer Islam, a police officer who leaves behind 2 young children, a pregnant wife due to give birth just in the next month, 2 aging parents, one of whom is struggling in his own health. And we know also of Wesley LePatner, who was a New Yorker that shone brightly across this city, who served on the boards of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the UJA Federation, the Heschel School, who served on the board of the Yale University Library Council, who is remembered by friends and by colleagues for the incredible achievements she leaves behind, and for the 2 children and husband that mourn her today, as do all New Yorkers. And also of Julia Hyman, a 27-year-old New Yorker who grew up here, who attended Riverdale High School, captained 3 different teams in her senior year, attended Cornell University, for which she just went to a 5-year reunion, and was remembered by colleagues at her workplace today as a superstar. a life cut short by a senseless act of violence. And as New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and Americans across the country mourn this mass shooting, we are reminded that no matter how strong our gun laws are in this state, we are only as safe as the weakest laws in this nation. And so in this moment, the onus is on all of us to follow the words of Alain's brother and to put forward a vision of stronger gun laws. And I echo the call from Governor Hochul for a nationwide ban on assault rifles, as it is horrifying to each and every one of us in this room and beyond that a man with such documented mental health struggles was able to purchase a weapon, leave alone a weapon of such devastating capability. And we know that the consequences of national inaction, though we feel them this week in Midtown, we know that they join a list of so many other places across this country. Be they Uvalde, be they El Paso, be they Sandy Hook, be they Charleston. As mayor, I will lead calls to ensure that we pass the legislation necessary beyond New York, such that every New Yorker can rest assured that we need not prepare for the next iteration of this horrific mass shooting. And we know that mass shootings are sadly all too familiar for New Yorkers themselves, as we experience them whether on our street corners or even on public transit. And though we have made strides towards making this city one that is free of that gun violence, we know that there is so much work to be done. And in this moment of mourning and of grief, I want to thank law enforcement for their response to the horrific shooting on Monday and their work in keeping New Yorkers safe. I ask that in this moment we come together as New Yorkers and we remember the 4 of our neighbors that were killed. We honor their memories and we live up to the way in which they led their lives. Thank you. Hi, Marcia. Thank you.
I'm wondering, you just talked about the fact that you wanted to honor the people who responded yesterday, Monday. And the reason I'm asking this question is I wonder if your views about the NYPD have changed over time, especially in light of this shooting, and the fact that both Cuomo and Mayor Adams have criticized your past statements about the SRG, the Strategic Response Group, which did respond because they claim that you said it should be disbanded. Do you still believe that? And do you want to send any kind of a message or feeling to the police department about views that you now have developed?
Over the course of this race, I've been very clear about my view of public safety and the critical role that police have in creating that. Public safety that officers are tasked with delivering while we ask them to respond to nearly every failure of the social safety net. And the vision that we've put forward in this campaign, despite what others may say, is not to defund the police. It is, in fact, to allow those officers to respond to these serious crimes that many of them signed up to address, and to do so by ensuring that we ask them to focus on those crimes and we ask mental health professionals to respond to calls of mental health crises. And as it pertains to the Strategic Response Group, when it was first formed, there was an intention for its use to be more akin to the manner in which it was deployed earlier this week. What we have found, however, is the city has come to rely upon the Strategic Response Group as its primary means of response to acts of protests across the city when New Yorkers exercise their First Amendment rights. And that decision in asking the members of that unit to respond to protests as opposed to what was the stated reason is a decision that has led to the violation of a number of New Yorkers' civil rights. And it's a decision that has been the basis of my critique of the use of the group towards that end.